A lot of people don't realize that the underlying stress and anxiety in their life is caused by financial troubles. If your personal finances are causing any sort of distress and you feel a certain level of resistance to doing the things that you know you have to do to position yourself for success, then it might be an opportunity to look into what's called inner work. In this video, I'm going to share with you how your inner child impacts your personal finances so that you can stop the cycle of financial self-sabotage. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence means you have to be open to acknowledging how your past pain impacts your current behaviors and decisions. And we'll talk about that. My name is Yvonne, and the goal in this channel is personal growth. So if you want to improve the quality of your life, click the subscribe button to level up. So inner work is part of financial education, and that goes into our mindset and the behaviors, which is the primary factors that determines our financial success. Everything starts with your mind, and your success is not necessarily what you know, but your ability to stick to the mindset and behaviors that are necessary to make it happen. So more specifically, here we're going to do a deeper dive in the inner work that focuses on inner child work. And I know inner work has many different categories, so I want you to be aware of that. But this particular area is very special and very unique, and so it definitely deserves its own space. So we'll talk more about that. So when you don't have control over your money, or you procrastinate, maybe you don't show up in life in the way that you need to in order to fix your situation, and you maybe have fear and anxiety around money, it might be a good time to look within. In fact, the book A Course in Miracles says, "We're never upset for the reason we think. It's not the current difficulties that disturb us. It's how they trigger old memories." So having the courage to go back and explore your childhood fears is the key to healing and resolving them sometimes. So when you feel pain, maybe from a deeper place within, it's your inner wounded child that needs attention. So unfortunately, the only way to heal this old pain is to go back and rewire those neural pathways that were sculpted by that pain in childhood. So the majority of the critical structure and functional organization of your brain was developed during childhood. And if that world was characterized by maybe stress, pain, anger, or fear, maybe your caretakers, parents, teachers, maybe childhood bullies growing up, maybe you grew up in an unsafe neighborhood environment, or maybe a strict religious household. All this stuff affects you as a child, and your brain would reflect that as early life stress. Actually, that's a thing, early life stress, and you might want to look into that. But as a child, it impacts you, that level of stress. So if you receive nurturing attention in a well cared for environment, then you're going to be wired much differently than the child that I spoke to earlier, that was consumed by all of these different experiences, right, that caused stress. So you want to rewire your wounded inner child's brain so that you can feel a deep sense of safety and security and take that control back in your life. It all goes back to the sense and that feeling of feeling safe and secure in your environment. And it's interesting because even myself, I was doing an energy psychology modality called Psych K, and it's extremely powerful. I learned about it from Bruce Lipton, which is does a lot of science work on epigenetics and things like that. So he's looking into a way to just quickly change our subconscious mind and our behavior. And Psych K kept coming up. So I went ahead and I did a few sessions. And interestingly enough, what came up for me was not really feeling safe and secure in this world. And I would have never thought that, to think that a lot of my apprehension and the reason why I wasn't behaving the way I wanted to was because I just generally just did not feel safe and secure. Although everything around me gives the impression of safety and security, right? But it was, again, a mindset thing, and I had to go in there and clean that up so that I can show up for myself and move on to the bigger things that I want for myself in my life. So that's an example of why it's important to do the inner work, because there's stuff that you don't even know you have that's affecting the way you behave and show up in the world. So you want to go back in there and do some self-assessment. It's all about self-awareness at the end of the day. Maybe you don't have that problem. Maybe, your inner child's fine. But, if it isn't, this video is not for you. But this is for anyone that's interested in exploring, the inner world. And so here it is, right? So let's talk about why is inner child work important? So, an important step in the recovery process is understanding where certain behavior patterns stem from, like I was giving you an example of myself, right? So inner child healing is important because it recognizes the past hurt and pain and helps provide the necessary tools for moving forward. See, the goal of inner child healing is to really reach a point where you can really better identify your own needs. Identify those behaviors and triggers. And sometimes we can be our own worst enemy here. But when we heal the inner child, it helps create a deeper sense of self-compassion. Okay? So what is the inner child, right? What is the actual inner child? I'm sure you've heard of it, right? So when you think of the healthy qualities of a child, what comes to mind? Well, children, they're trusting. They have liveliness. There's just an innocence about them. They're curious, joyful, and they have a sense of boldness about them, right? They have a wonder and a lightness and a playfulness and even an openness about them. My son and my daughter just recently went through, private class for swimming. So we had an instructor come in to visit us and to the pool, and they gave them instruction. Each of them had a week of instruction. And it was amazing to see just that sense of boldness and that sense of wonder that they had when they were playing in the water. And they were so trusting, so very trusting, with myself, the nanny, and the trainer, the instructor, the swim instructor there in the pool with them. And they really exuded that sense of confidence and curiosity. And just made me think, where did it go, in us? Where does it go when we become adults? A lot of that is just chipped away, isn't it? Well, the qualities that we recognize in young children and we wish we had as adults, and we almost look at the children with nostalgia, with a sense of nostalgia, like, wow, that's so beautiful, we wish we had that as adults, right? Why can't we be more trusting? Well, because the years of life experience has kind of chipped that away in many of us, right? So, but how do we stay true to that? Okay, how do we stay playful? Well, somehow we left that behind us in the process of growing up. See, during the first 7 years of your life, when you're most impressionable, these stressful experiences can slowly chip away at these great qualities and are deeply marked in your developing brain, almost like a switch, right? So think of your brain or the neural pathways like a river, right, in your brain. And then you have that playfulness, that trusting, the curiosity, the boldness, But then something happens that causes stress, then that circumvents like a switch. It turns something off, right? So you get enough of those, then you're going to be a completely different person, right? Well, your inner child is a part of your subconscious that has been picking up messages way before it was able to fully process what was going on mentally and emotionally. So let's say, for instance, you're a child and you're trusting and you're playful, but then something happens. In my case, I remember when I was in kindergarten, and the school bus driver just went right past the bus stop, and I saw my mother there, and she was crying out our names, myself and my sister, crying out our names, and the bus driver just kind of kept going. It was I didn't know, of course, I'm in kindergarten, right, at the time. So it was a new bus driver. He didn't know the bus route. And I remember we ended up being the only ones left on that school bus. And he turned off the bus, and we were scared. He walks over to us and he says, "You have to get out of the bus." Well, and looking around, we didn't recognize that neighborhood. That area was not some place we were familiar with. So we were really scared. Here, a person in authority was telling a child to get out of the bus, and he was entrusted, our lives were entrusted to him to care for us while we were in that bus and take us safely to the bus stop. And that didn't happen. You see, we had to get out of the bus. We got out of the bus in a strange place, and that really affected me clearly. So that experience caused a lot of stress. Well, anyway, let me finish the story. So we got out of the bus, and I remember my sister and I. I think she was in first grade. He said, "Keep going straight." Well, there was a road that kind of curved because he left us in a corner, a road that kept going straight this way. And then there was a road that went this way. So he's telling children, keep going straight. And we're like, well, what's straight? We're not sure. So what we did was, because my parents did raise us Christian, so we didn't have our parents around and people we trusted. So what we did was we held hands and we prayed. My sister prayed for us. And it seems like in that prayer, we were directed into that straight path, the right path we were supposed to go. Funny enough. And I remember seeing strangers coming on the side of the road, and me thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to get stolen here. They're going to steal us. I remember thinking that. So, but after that prayer, there was just a sense of calmness that came about my sister and I. And then we just kept on walking straight. And as the story goes, I remember looking to the right and seeing the white church that we went to growing up. And that was a sign that we were safe, that we were in the right path, so to speak. It became familiar to us. We would walk to that church from our house. So thankfully my mother was in that same place where the bus stop was supposed to be. She trusted that, we'd be there. We'd find, that somehow we'd come back to that spot. And sure enough, we saw our mother. We ran over to her. We hugged. We cried. We kissed. And then we went home. Okay, so what happened? The next day, my mother went over to that school and said, what is going on here? You don't get to do that. And surely enough, That bus driver was let go. Later on, it became clear to me in the story, and I was able to forgive, him for doing that. He was probably new, didn't know what was going on. But the long and short of it is, I'm 42 years old now, and this happened when I was in kindergarten. This left such if you think about that brain, it left something, that stressful, heightened stress, left something that changed, right? The way I viewed life. And so a lot of things, as I go through therapy and as I've gone through therapy now, for some reason, this experience kept coming up, and my not trusting authority, my not feeling safe, my not feeling secure, my sense of, abandonment was another one that showed up for me. Just all of these things. And then this experience came up. So, it didn't have to be anything too terrible, right? Because I'm sure other adults experienced other more serious things. And I'm not just saying that this one thing caused everything else, right? All my adulthood, trauma or anything, but there's this is one example of many that we experience during childhood, during our normal, childhood and growing up, that can leave an impression on us because it created some heightened stress, okay? Some mental and emotional stress. The inner child is a term that's credited to the psychiatrist Carl Jung, who founded analytical psychology. The inner child is a form of an individual's internal self that stems from past childhood experiences and memories. So it holds those emotions, memories, and beliefs from the past, as well as hopes and dreams for the future. So it's no surprise that I became a spiritual and religious person as a result of it. Think of what the story I just told you, right? That there was a place that we went to every Sunday along our path, and as this stressful situation happened, I turned and looked, and there it was, right? That church, which, by the way, I'm not a Catholic, certainly not anymore, after I did my research on that, religion, but I am Christian. So, but my point is, that became a symbol of safety to me as a child. And so it's no surprise that as I was growing up, I've always been spiritual. And of course, religion and spirit, being religious and being spiritual, are two very, very different things. I've learned that for sure. But the point is that it affected and impacted my development in growing up, right? So it does affect your emotions, memories, and beliefs. Okay, so I share this with you not because I'm a therapist or a psychologist, but because these types of modalities have served me to make peace and to move forward in life because of these things, because of this knowledge. And as a coach, it helps me to understand this. Certainly a coach is extremely different than a therapist. I encourage you to seek a therapist that is specializes in inner child if any of this is resonating with you, okay? And a caveat, not every therapist is, it's not a one size fits all. So it takes some shopping to find the right therapist for you. I will say that, but don't give up. Okay, don't give up. You will find the right therapist, and the person that you are going to be on the other side is just going to be a person with a lot more compassion and understanding and self-awareness. And so that's why we're spending some time talking about these things, okay, and sharing these. And if you have any experiences that you feel comfortable in sharing and how inner child work has supported you, feel free to share that in the comments below. Well, you see, a person's inner child can have either a positive or negative traits depending on the past experiences. And certainly there are so many positive and lovely memories that I had as a child growing up, right? But for the sake of this conversation, I just wanted to share this one thing. But yeah, understand that the inner child work is not just the negative and stressful, but also the inner child has the positive traits too that we want to explore within ourselves. So the third point I wanted to talk about with you is what triggers the inner child. Well, in some cases, the source of the pain can be experiencing maybe unmet emotional needs, the illness of a parent or sibling, maybe growing up in a broken family, or even just being a part of a large family and not getting the attention you need. I know a lot of times there's that middle child syndrome that's a thing, and it comes up. And I am a middle child, and growing up, you definitely feel the difference. For those of us that are middle children, we know no one can really understand what we've gone through. But these are the things that are just a part of life to be aware of, right? So these are the things that I'm trying to tell you that could trigger this in adulthood, trigger certain behaviors in adulthood. So in other cases, that wound could be our inner child, right? It could be the result of mental, emotional, or physical trauma, abuse, or abandonment. So, there's a lot of things. It's very complex and involved. So that's what I'm saying. It's important to reach out to the professionals that are able to help you through it. You can also, there are a lot of resources and books. What worked for me is Inner Child Journal. There's so many inner child journals online that you can search, and so that's another resource that I found very, very helpful. You don't need a therapist if you're not financially able to take care of these things. You can get a journal online and slowly journal through that as well. So there are many avenues to seek for that for self exploration, self discovery, and self awareness, self improvement, right? So what is inner child work? Well, inner child work is a form of self-care. I want you to remember that inner child work is not brokenness or that you're broken. No, not in any way. I want you to see inner work as a part of your self-care routine. Okay, we should all have a self-care routine. Self-care is not just getting your nails done and your hair's done, or taking a nice bubble bath with some scented oils. Okay, self-care is also doing the inner work, and in this case, the inner child work, because it's going to help your mental and emotional health. Okay, a lot of times when we talk about self-care, people think about the physical part of self-care, and that's good too. But also, I am challenging you to consider the inner part of self-care. And a lot of people ignore that. It's easier to just throw on a nice dress, right? But it's a lot more. But you're going to reap a lot more benefits by going in, okay, by doing the inner work. So it's a method of addressing the behavior patterns you have today that are rooted in unmet needs in your childhood. This is important. So inner child work is self-care. That's a method of addressing the behavior patterns you have today that are rooted in the unmet needs in your childhood. Since your inner child affects how you show up today as an adult, being aware of it can really help improve your life. This type of inner work involves self-awareness. It involves self-acceptance, self-love, self-compassion. You see, inner child work is where you examine or observe your own mental and emotional process. It focuses on acknowledging your childhood stress and anxiety caused by your unmet mental, emotional, or even physical needs, okay? So that you're able to move towards a path to healing. So a child needs to feel safe and secure. And if you didn't feel safe and secure, then guess what? You developed, more likely than not, a coping mechanism in your childhood to cope with the feelings of stress and anxiety that came with it, right? So your coping mechanisms worked as a child, right? But no longer work as an adult, okay? So I want to share with you a few steps for ending behaviors that create self-sabotage so you can begin healing the inner child. These are 5 steps that have worked well for me in my healing journey, specifically in my financial healing journey, and I'd love to share them with you. It's not exhaustive, it's just a short list. Develop coping mechanisms is the first thing. So we want to explore the different coping mechanisms to find what works best for you. So what helped me the most to heal was having a steady morning and evening routine that included journal writing, prayer, and affirmations. Also, getting journals that have inner child healing journal prompts that help you guide you through it. One that I really enjoyed was Loner Wolf by Luna and Soul. Got a copy. This is the one they actually have it in digital form, but you actually have to print it. So I just went and got it bound, and so it's very beautiful journal, and I use it personally. Another resource is Dr. Susan Anderson's book on Taming the Outer Child and the Abandonment Recovery Workbook. This workbook has worked really well for me. I've completed the whole thing, and I found it to be a fabulous resource. She also has a book, The Journey from Abandonment to Healing. So she's got a lot of great resources. The other one that I found to be very effective, Margaret Paul, PhD, she's done a lot of work called Inner Bonding. She's got a Inner Bonding workbook. None of these resources are sponsored, by the way. It's just I wanted to share with you the stuff that's worked for me, and hopefully it'll work for you. I remember the other day I was in Barnes and Nobles, and there was a woman in the cafe, and she had a whole bunch of huge pile of books on breakup, and I passed her by, and I was like, oh, my heart goes out to her, and I just couldn't help myself because that's how I am. I stopped to have a conversation with her, chit chat a little bit, and I said, when I went through my breakup, these are the resources that helped me, and I shared them with her, and she took pictures, and she looked it up on Amazon, and we formed a really a nice conversation around the subject. So I like to share what's worked well for me, if that might serve someone else. Heal faster and get on with their journey, because she seemed a little overwhelmed with all the resources that are out there. But what works for me may not work for you, right? So find what works best for you. So, another thing that has worked for me is Psych-K, like I mentioned before. It's a modality considered energy psychology that has made a big difference. Some other common techniques maybe include working with a licensed therapist that really specializes in inner child work. So if you need additional support, I personally had to interview many therapists to find the one that was right for me. So I encourage you to do so. During your session, the therapist will help you work through your internal family system, your relationship with your parents and caregivers, and any traumatic event that impacted your wounded child. So these are things to consider and to look into. I encourage you to do this as part of your healing journey so that you can move forward, okay, to achieve your financial dreams and goals. And not just your financial, just in life, okay, overall. So the second thing I wanted to share with you is discover your unmet needs, okay? So pay attention to those daily triggers. There's things that really tick you off. There's things that get under your skin There's things that frustrate you or get you upset. Pay attention to those things. Keep a log of those things, right? I got angry at the car that did this to me, cut me off, right? Or I get angry at that waitress because she didn't do this and that and the other, right? These things, these daily triggers in life, pay attention to that, because guess what? That is a gift that's going to reveal to you areas for you to explore and improve. So what makes you upset, angry, irritable, frustrated, stressed, or anxious, right? Ask yourself that. So identifying what behaviors or interactions bring up these wounds. And you might not necessarily right now link them to childhood wounds, and that's okay. Okay? But just know this, that more likely than not, they do link to unmet needs in your childhood and your coping mechanisms then that are no longer serving you now as an adult, right? So by identifying what causes your pain, you can understand and resolve your unmet needs. So the third thing I wanted to talk to you about is to heal this is fostering self-awareness. See, consistent self-reflection is a key component of inner child work. That's why I find that the most effective healing is in your daily routine of daily journal writing, prayer, and affirmations, because it has to be consistent. Because it took years for you to develop coping mechanisms, decades likely. And that's not going to get resolved in just, one session. It's going to take several daily, a daily routine to help you, okay? Heal all of that. So self-awareness means you have to be open to acknowledging how your past pain impacts your current behaviors and decisions. So ultimately, as you reflect on your past and develop a stronger sense of emotional awareness, it's really going to improve the decisions and the actions you take. And ultimately, it's going to improve your self-esteem. So the fourth is practicing self-care. Yes, practicing self-care. So prioritize time for doing things that you enjoy. So what are you passionate about? What sparks your creativity, right? Remember those childhood qualities that we talked about earlier? What makes you feel alive, right? What makes you feel bold and just feeling like you can just get out there and just, do things, right? Maybe for you it's art, writing poetry, maybe exploring and traveling, seeing new things. Well, spend time taking care of these needs and allow yourself the grace and the time that you need to heal, okay? So get back to those emotions, and that's really going to support you. The fifth is journaling. Yes, I've been mentioning this all along, so this definitely deserves its very own category. Journaling takes the unconscious into the conscious mind. So remaining unconscious in life is what empowers that inner child to take control and overpower your will, the will of the adult. You're the adult, not that inner child. And a lot of times they come in and they wreak havoc. So this helps the rational brain, the frontal lobe that manages that higher level executive function, will help you seek solutions, okay? It helps your adult self to stay in control. Otherwise, that inner child or that primitive brain, that amygdala, will keep repeating old patterns of self-protection, that fight, flight, or freeze response, okay? And that's going to wreak havoc in your life, including your finances. It's gonna make you have lack of discipline, lack of self-control. See, all of that is the part of your brain called the amygdala. So it's really a battle, right, between that that brain, the primitive brain, and the executive function, the frontal lobe. And that's what the difference between what we call that inner child and the adult self, right? So there's a link there. See, stress is what triggers that amygdala, the fight, flight, or freeze response. Stress. And didn't we say that stress was the main cause that created this wounded inner child? So we want to make sure that we are aware of what causes the stress, because that is going to trigger this amygdala primitive response. So you see, the third innermost part of the brain, the amygdala area, known as the reptilian brain, okay, that's the oldest part of the brain and is responsible for 90% of decision making. So you're out of control with your money because essentially a child is in the driver's seat. Okay, so whenever you're upset, irritable, feel out of control, journal about your triggers. Okay, keep your stress in check, because stress, that cortisol hormone that gets released, triggers the amygdala and is like a child going into that front seat, pushing your adult self aside and saying, hey, I'm taking the wheel, okay, and really driving and wreaking havoc in your life. Okay, so here are a few journal writing prompts that may help you along the way. So the first question you might ask yourself and journal about is, what is my current financial situation? What is my current financial situation? The second journal prompt is, what did I observe about money growing up? What did I observe about money growing up? And the third question is, what steps will I take to heal my financial situation? What steps will I take to heal my financial situation? So those are the 5 steps. So in conclusion, if your personal finances are causing any sort of distress and you feel a certain level of resistance to doing the things you know you have to do to position yourself for success, then it might be an opportunity, again, to look into what's called inner work. Okay? So that's why I have designed my signature Money Mastery program. It's really a great program, an 8-week program that also has a coaching element to it. I also have a journal where we have journal prompts to do these types of things, this inner work. You see, traditional personal finance education tends to focus on facts and numbers and ignores the inner work and the mindset and the behavior transformation that's needed to build lasting results. And it's more than just creating a budget. It's creating a lifestyle to build and keep wealth. So if you're ready to invest in your financial education, this course is for you, because it combines getting the full picture of personal finance as well as helping you create a personalized financial action plan. And this program is curated for those who are ready to really upgrade their mindset for wealth. You know, this is not for everyone, okay? This is an exclusive experience for those that are committed to their transformation, to really get out of debt, save more, increase their income, and invest to build generational wealth. This exceptional and unique program will support you in having that peace of mind that comes when you have an action plan for your financial freedom. So if you're ready to live a life of financial prosperity on your terms, click the link below in the description box to enroll. Also, I encourage you to check out my Goals Mastery program. If you feel stuck and you need more clarity in your life, you find yourself maybe constantly chasing after the same goals year after year without much progress, then this course may help you to get clear with what you want in life and help you to identify, define, and align with a vision, mission, and a set of goals for yourself, as well as an action plan to achieve them. This is across all areas of your life. Also, it's always good to have inspirational, motivational reminders to keep you motivated towards achieving your dreams and goals. So click on the link below to choose your favorite custom design gift for yourself, family, and friends in my online merch store. This is one of the mugs called the Doodle Heart, and you can pick this one up. and other items there in the merch store. So if you enjoyed this video and want to improve the quality of your life, click the subscribe button to level up, and I'll see you on the next one. Oceans of love. Till next time.